everybody. Welcome back to A Cult of Misfits. I'm Matt Owens. If you're interested in things like spirituality, the nature of reality, consciousness, the inward journey, ascension, or even the Anunnaki, well, you're in luck because those are the types of things that I really enjoy talking about in my podcast. So check out A Cult of Misfits on Spotify and YouTube and Apple Podcasts. If you're not following me on Twitter or X or Instagram, I'm on all of those platforms as well, where I post additional content. So check out some of my other episodes. Thank you to everybody who's following the podcast. I'm getting a lot of good comments from you guys that are loving the show. So thank you. Shout out to everybody who's been checking it out. And I appreciate you. Today, I want to talk about the higher self, which I am calling the Omega, which I'll explain in a minute. And I also want to talk about the matrix and the nature of reality, what the matrix means in Latin, and why I think it's important. So those are the things we're going to dive into today. On my walk today, I was thinking a lot. I've been thinking a lot about just everything. The nature of reality specifically, and what the heck is going on around here. Is this real? Is it not real? So that's a little bit what I want to dive into today. Um, I'm starting to, I kind of am trying to wrap my mind around what my beliefs are because I dive so deep down so many rabbit holes. It's like, oh yeah, I like to take a little bit of that. Oh, that also makes a lot of sense. But I also like to see the patterns, the overall patterns from the different religions and spiritual practices and philosophies around the world over time, and sort of put together my own Frankenstein spiritual belief system, which I will not call a religion, but that's why I started a cult. It's just those with like-minded beliefs can kind of clump together, and we can all talk about, reincarnation and the Anunnaki. So that's what we're here for. I was looking a little bit just on a side note into Rosicrucianism. So if you're interested in that, you might want to check it out. It sort of incorporates Gnosticism and just a lot of my beliefs sort of lumped into Rosicrucianism. So I hate to put myself into a box and say I'm Rosicrucian, but there are a lot of things that I do believe in that belief system. So if you're interested, check it out. I might talk about it in a future episode, but um, I'm starting to think about the concept of the higher self, which I had never even heard of that term before until I started, diving into spirituality and looking into, lapis lazuli and incense when I first started my hippie journey, guys. Um, when I was awakened, when I had the eyes to see, loved me some incense, and still do. Um, but I'd never heard of the higher self, so I started looking into it, and I was like, oh. Okay, I see what they're talking about. They're basically talking about, it sounded a lot like God to me, like this omniscient, all powerful, higher version of us, this spiritual, enlightened, whatever word you want to throw at it, being that exists somewhere beyond the veil, that has a vested interest in our personal lives and our species in some way. That voice that's sort of leading us and guiding us, that you could call our intuition, that sort of connection to the divine. So I think that a lot of people refer to that as God. I grew up Christian, as I talk about all the time. And, I think I'm not talking about the Christian version of God. I'm just sort of talking about the sort of broad term for a divine being that's sort of all love and peace, and it has an interest in helping us out and guiding us through this material realm in some way. Okay. So then I started thinking about, like, well, the higher self, what if that was just a higher version of me? And then I started thinking about how this whole thing might be a simulation or a game, or whatever you want to call it. And I sort of have been given the image of like a video game where my higher self is the player, and me down here in the human realm, I'm the 3D avatar that, I won't get into it, but I don't think we have free will. I think that our higher self is controlling us in some way, or have written the story already in some way. Um, and it's in our best interest to have this connection between us and our higher self, because I think that what I want is what my higher self wants, what God wants. And I think that what God wants is what I want. And I repeat that self. I don't know if I heard that somewhere or if I made it up or saw it in a vision, but I like it. Wherever it came from, I like it. I want what God wants, and God wants what I want. It's this reciprocal nature, as above, so below. Um, and I don't trust many things in this 3D realm, especially since what I call my awakening in 2020, where I don't trust systems or government or big tech, big pharma, the medical institute, a lot of institutions that I don't trust anymore for various reasons that I won't get into now. Um, so I feel like I've had to really lean into my intuition these last few years to really navigate through these muddy waters that we've found ourselves in society in the 3D realm today, right? Like who's telling the truth, who's lying, who's deceiving us, and it's just been an opportunity, rather than bitching and moaning about it and saying, playing the victim, and the elites are trying to take over and run for the hills. They're just a part of the program. They're just a part of this grand experience that we're having here on Earth. And so I choose not to victimize myself or point to them and point blame. But um, I don't trust them. And so I thought, like, what do I trust? And I trust my higher self, is what I was thinking about on my walk today. I just love taking my walks, guys. In case I post a lot of photos from my walks. If you're interested in my life on any level whatsoever, guys, I post a lot of photographs on my Instagram. So, a Cult of Misfits. I was a former professional photographer. For those of you that were interested, um, I don't know why that needed to be said. Like, guys, I am very important. Is what my ego is trying to tell you guys. Anyway, I like taking pictures on my walks. So if you enjoy nature or just photography, check it out. But what was I getting at? I got lost in my ego there and I forgot what I was talking about. I trust my higher self. That's the only thing in this reality that I really, at the core, the base foundation, I know that is what has my back. That is what's looking out for me. That is that which is whispering in my ear, leading me and guiding me down the right roads, through the darkness, outside my comfort zone. Uh, on the beach when I was too weary to walk, it's the person that lifted me up, right? Some people would call that Jesus or God, but I'm calling it the Omega Matt Owens. I'm a big fan of X-Men, and I was given the illustration that it's very similar to the highest possible version of myself, the Omega version. I was thinking specifically of Jean Grey, who is one of the mutants that has powers. For those of you that don't know the X-Men, she's one of the X-Men that has these powers, but she eventually morphs and becomes like the ultimate highest level of mutant is like called the Omega. The Omega. So she turns into the Phoenix, and the Phoenix is basically this unstoppable force that transcends time and all dimensions and reality, and is just like this insanely powerful force, being, whatever you want to call it, this Omega level mutant. And so I started thinking of my higher self like an Omega level mutant. That my higher self is in another dimension or realm that I can't quite comprehend. So we'll just call it heaven for funsies, right? But a higher realm than we're currently in. And I believe that that's a higher version of myself. Now, what is myself? What do I mean by that? I put it in quotation marks because I believe that everything in this reality and not in this reality is a part of the all that is, the incomprehensible, the ineffable, the everything. Call whether that's all of these words don't even scrape the surface of what I'm talking about. But that's my view of the highest power, is just the all that is, that pervasive energy, the force that is in every blade of grass and in me and in you and in the stars and the cosmos, in all directions, in every dimension, beyond our comprehension, since we're rhyming apparently. um, on a side note, I've been getting into these rhymes just pop into my head as I'm just sort of saying I hate to call them mantras because I just don't like calling them mantras, but just these things that I say to myself over and over again, positive reinforcements or reprogramming of my mind or whatever. And so lately I've been laughing because as I feel like I'm in the flow when I go on these walks that I go on every day with sweet Chi Chi, he bears with me as I connect to the universe, all that is. Um, and I just have started rhyming these like poetry almost just started just popping into my head, and oftentimes it's funny and makes me laugh that what the rhymes are, and I feel like it's not from me. That's why I'm talking about it. Is there's just some, my higher self is a real poet, and I didn't even know it. So that's what I'm getting at. But I trust my higher self to have my back, and it's sort of I don't like having this nebulous "Who's helping me on the other side? Who are you?" This faceless, nameless thing that I don't really feel comfortable calling God. But like, who are you? I think that as a part of my spiritual team, I perhaps have angels or my ancestors or maybe even a couple of Pleiadians knocking around on my team helping me out. So thanks to my Pleiadian bros that are watching my back. Um, who knows, right? In this grand mystery that we're in, this is all speculative, and I don't ever want to speak from a place of this is the truth, these are just my opinions, of course, and my beliefs. I've found are they come and go, and so today these are my beliefs, and that's why we're talking about them. um and so I think that if it were a situation where, I believe that my higher self, this omnipotent, omniscient version of me, is but a drop in the cosmic ocean of all that is, very Eastern philosophical ideas, right? Um, and me in this human avatar, I am but a drop of the all that is, right? I believe that there's a spark of the divine that is within all of us, within every blade of grass as well, perhaps. But um, I believe there's that spark of the divine within us. Now, I've been talking a lot about dualistic thinking, binary thinking, that sort of thing, that is so pervasive in this realm, in this world. And so there's this idea of separation. Religion really hammers that home, the idea of separation from God, that I need to talk to a priest or a rabbi or a pope or my pastor in order to convene with the divine or the rabbi or whatever, fill in the blank. That there's an intermediary between me and the divine. But as I've started this journey the last several years, I have seen it differently. And I now see that everything is all one. We are all separate yet together, right? In a way that our human minds can't truly comprehend. I don't believe, yet, at least, right? Um, and so I have this idea that my soul is in me or inside of me, or that I'm a canister or a container for the divine or something. But even that, in my mind, creates separateness. That it's like, my soul is like a bean inside of a can knocking around inside of this vessel, right? But if I follow my belief systems, I have to really start incorporating that we are actually one. That there is not a spark of the divine, there is not a soul within me. I am the divine. And that's kind of a big leap. That's almost blasphemous, depending on who you're talking to and what your perspective is on how this all works. Right? But I've started shifting my mind into start believing that spark is not within me, that I am the spark. I am the flame. I am the light of the divine. And a lot of these ancient philosophies, specifically the Eastern and Asian philosophies, talk about embodying the divine, that's enlightenment in some way, that is a goal in some way while we're on this journey, is to embody the divinity that we are, right? There's been a separation. The religious folks will tell you it's called sin. Sin, separateness, it's all a part of the illusion. those that have taken psychedelics or had a religious experience with or without the use of substances will often tell you, as I can attest from my own life, that once you see things from that perspective, that everything is connected, that we are all one. And then it starts to make it a little bit harder to get angry at that person who cut you off in traffic, or get angry at what that person said to you yesterday at work, or you know, once you start to see that they are just versions of you, which is to say, a version of divinity itself experiencing the 3D world, right? Then it sort of shifts everything a little bit. I have a little bit more compassion for people now. And I'm so thankful for that. These trials and tribulations in my life have shown me a lot of new perspectives. And so when I'm going through them, I'm not, it's quite difficult to say thank you, as tears are often streaming down your face. Like, okay, thanks for this. This is a nightmare, but thank you, I guess. Uh, but ultimately, I've gotten myself in the habit of doing that. Um, so I believe that my higher self has my back, and my higher self has the omega version of me, Matt Omega, if you will. Matt Omega is has shown me, because I've put him to the test, that there's a system and a mechanism of everything working out in my life. That my base needs are always taken care of, no matter what. That hasn't failed me once, and I've been on a real journey where that's been shown to me over and over again, specifically in the last couple of years. So I know that Matt Omega has my back. I like that. Matt Omega. We'll start going with that. It puts a face to it. It's my face, so I enjoy looking at my face. So is that my ego? Maybe that's Matt Omega, guys. That's Matt Omega for you. And so I am more willing to submit to this divine hand when it's my own, when it's my own hand looking out for me, right? I start to think about it from Matt Omega's perspective. Like, if I were in the higher realm and I could see everything for what it was, and I was trying to guide this dingbat human in the 3D realm, guiding him here and there, but he keeps freaking out because of fears or limiting beliefs or unwillingness to step out of my comfort zone, or whatever the long list of things are, right? That create this separateness from what the flow of the cosmic universe is guiding me, leading me to. I've learned to submit to that hand because I view it as my hand, right? I'm guiding myself. It's like guiding my inner child, whatever analogy you want to use, right? That's sweet and precious. That's what I'm guiding. It's not. I don't view it as Yahweh, the Old Testament, fire and brimstone God. That if I fuck up, I'm going to hell forever, or if I do it wrong, I'm going to hell forever, or if I don't follow the rules, I'm going to hell forever. I don't. That's not my belief system. I believe in insane. I was watching I don't remember the name of the movie. Ryan Reynolds was in it, who I really like, and I don't remember the title, but he was like a future awesome badass version of this kid, and he goes back in time or something in another dimension. This is real vague, guys. You'll only know what I'm talking about if you either go on IMDb or you've seen the stupid movie. But um, he travels back in time to his younger self, his 10 or 12-year-old version of himself. And the younger kid version of him is like, you are so badass. You're so awesome. You're so amazing. Like, are you telling me that I turn out to be you? Like, that is awesome. Right? Because so often the younger version of ourselves, the old version of ourselves, I'll speak for myself, old versions of Matt Owens didn't love himself very much, was very insecure. Even though he acted confident on the outside, it was all a show. He was very scared on the inside and very worried all the time and stressed about everything. And if I saw Matt Omega, if I saw the Omega version of myself in real life, I'd be like, holy shit, you're fucking awesome, dude. How do I get to be you? Like, point me in the right direction. And Matt Omega says, that's exactly the path you're on, friend. Keep up the good work. How do you think I got to become me? It's because you did all the hard work. So thanks, pal. That's how I start to view it now. So anytime I go through these trials or tribulations, my future version of myself, the Matt Omega, is saying, keep it up, buddy. This is exactly what needs to happen for the amazingness to kick in, right? So I'm always striving to become the best version of myself. And the way that I found to do that is simplest in my life, is to just go with the GD flow. Right? Let Matt Omega lead me. Let Matt Omega guide me. When he says to call somebody, I do. When he says to do this, I do. When he says to stop drinking coffee, I reluctantly do eventually. Sometimes, usually, I try my best. But he has my best interest at heart, and vice versa. Like we're a unit, we're a team, we're connected, are in a real and metaphorical way, right? All of the ways. And so it makes life a little bit easier when I start to frame it like that. Like, okay, you're asking me to do something that I think is unusual or awkward or uncomfortable or scary or outside my comfort zone. But you know what? Matt Omega, you've never let me down. And he just smiles because he knows I'm right. That guy has a really great record with me. And I've been keeping meticulous notes. And he hasn't let me down once. And so now when he says to metaphorically jump off of a cliff, I say, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. And I like start running. And I take a flying leap because I know that wherever he's taken me is going to be real great. It's all about practice. It took me so long to get here, years, which I suppose isn't that long. I suppose lifetimes are spent trying to work through this shit, right? So in a way, I feel blessed that it's been years, and no way am I at the top of the mountaintop here, or I'm mastering this or that. No, 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 no. But I'm always striving to be the highest version of myself, and that's what I always say. Rather than focusing on the things in my life that I don't currently have that Matt Owens wants, Matt Omega doesn't care about money or power or any of the earthly things, right? Matt Omega's happy to experience anything. And that used to make Matt Owens real nervous. What do you mean you want me to do that? And Matt Omega's like, come on, buddy, let's do it. Let's face our fears. And I'm like, that is terrifying. I don't want to do that. And he's like, come on, come on. Don't be a baby. Let's do this. And I'm like, okay. So this is how I started to live my life. Um, is trusting the Omega. Trusting the highest version of myself. And I believe that there's always an Omega version. When Matt Owens dies and the physical form dies, and I advance, and I was going to say meet Matt Omega, but I just, fully embody Matt Omega, I suppose. Um, I think that Matt Omega will have a higher version of that, and a higher version of that, and a higher version of that. I feel like it's this infinite unfolding and discovering of who we are as we get closer and closer to the all that is, the incomprehensible, right? That's what I think this journey is. So I started thinking about this process. I've really been interested a lot, if you've listened to previous episodes that I talk about, just our origin stories and where we came from, and who our creator is, and looking into all of the ancient civilizations and what their stories are about our origins. And it's real interesting that almost all of them, a lot of them on every continent, they all have this very similar origin stories. They all have a great flood story, so I find that very interesting. Um, and they all talk about this idea of this place that we're in, this 3D realm, being an illusion, right? A matrix. So I like to look into the origins, the root words, and the original languages that many of these words come from. I've done a previous episode, if you're interested, about Lucifer and Satan and the devil and where these terms come from, what these terms mean. Are they all the same being? And the answer is no. They're just kind of a mishmash of different terms that don't necessarily connote evil demons. Lucifer means, bearer of the light or of the light. And Satan, the Satan, just means an adversary, like in a court situation. So I started looking into the word matrix, since so many in this community of ours likes to talk about escaping from the matrix and escaping from this illusion, and we're imprisoned, whether or not you think it's the Anunnaki or artificial intelligence or future versions of ourselves or dark entities that are trapping us in this matrix, which I'll talk about in a second. The word matrix is Latin for the word womb, like where a baby grows up, a womb. And I find that very interesting, because if you start to use that analogy, that this 3D realm that we found ourselves in, this bubble, almost like the Truman Show, where we're in this isolated world with a firmament or a veil that is keeping us from the quote unquote real world, the outside world, right? Real life, base reality. And so when you start thinking about this 3D realm as being a matrix, being a womb, you can start to see why the analogies as above, so below start to make sense. Like, are we a part of the world? If you're a baby in a womb, are you part of the world? Well, yes, technically, I guess, kind of. How would you describe that? Do you see what I'm getting at? The baby is in kind of a weird, she's not yet in the real world, or he's not yet in the real world, because the mother's tummy or the placenta or whatever analogy you want to use is the veil, right? Is the firmament that is separating the baby from the quote unquote real world, right? And so I think that I think the whole purpose of this 3D realm is not you. An argument could be made that the baby could be considered trapped or enslaved in the womb, if you chose to see that perspective. I suppose. Can you see how people could say that? Like, yeah, I guess they're enslaved to the umbilical cord, maybe, right? To our higher self, aka the mom, right? Like, the analogy keeps going. It's like a nesting doll, guys. Um, and so I believe that this life on earth, I often ask myself, what is the meaning? What is the purpose of all of this? If this is an illusion, then what the hell's the point of it all? And I believe that this place is a training ground for base reality, for the real world, whatever that means. There's just been a lot of anecdotal evidence, out of body experiences, you know, um, just supernatural experiences in people's lives where they've gone to the other side, where most of them report, not all, most of them report that it just seems more real than real life, right? Like the colors are more vivid, and I don't know how to describe it, but it just is real, more real than where I was just at, whatever that place was, right? And so, um, you know, Plato and the Egyptians and the Eastern, they all talk about how this is all not real. And so I think that this whole place is meant to just be a training ground, a simulation, a practice, right? A school, whatever analogy you want to use, for practice for the real world, right? Gaining our footing on things, right? Like an in between place where we kind of can gain our bearings, learn how to, control our emotions, learn how to go within, learn how to balance ourselves mentally and physically and spiritually. And then once we're ready, I think that we keep dying and reincarnating and dying and reincarnating over and over and over again, stuck in this endless cycle that's not quite endless, because I don't know, this place is weird. Let's not get into it. But like reincarnation, right? Where you keep reincarnating over and over again. Um, until your vibration is at a certain level, where your enlightenment or your consciousness gains a certain level. And I think that we're all in different places along that timeline. Time is an illusion, but just for human conversation, we'll say that. But I just feel like we get stuck in this cycle of samsara. And then I started looking into, Hinduism and a lot of the Eastern philosophies, and many of them talk about how the goal of this whole thing is nirvana, or to finally escape from this, wheel of life, this cycle of death, birth, rebirth, death, birth, rebirth, right? To eventually get off of that cycle, in my mind, to graduate into the next level, quote unquote, real life, right? Where we can let our true selves be, to experience the universe as I believe we're meant to, right? And I believe we're just getting just a little taste of it while we're here, right? In this dreamy realm that we're in, this 3D life, that's real but not real. Like when you're in a dream at night, it feels real when you're in the dream, right? Until you wake up and you're like, oh, that was nothing. So in the dream, you get scared of things and you get worried about stuff, and it all feels very real until you wake up. And so, looking into Hindu philosophy specifically this week, I've been looking into how to escape from the cycle. And more or less, most of the Eastern philosophies sort of talk about the path to enlightenment, right? Whether you call it yogas or whatever, these paths to escape the matrix. And the way to gain that enlightenment, to level up, there's several paths. There isn't just one direct path. There's many. One of those is through knowledge, right? Gnosis. Learning about these spiritual things, diving in deep, having the open-mindedness and open-heartedness that can allow you to question things that you have never questioned before, perhaps, right? You have to be at a place in your life where you're able to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe there is no God. Maybe there is no reincarnation. Maybe there is no aliens. Maybe none of this is real, right? To be able to get yourself to a place where you can ask those questions. And up until 2020, I certainly was not able to ask myself those questions. I had a very firm belief in what I thought was real and not real, and you couldn't convince me otherwise. You're wrong. I'm right. Um, if you told me there is no God, I'd be like, well, that's cute that you believe that, but it's not true. There is a God. So it's about being willing and able to question those things in your life, question those beliefs that have oftentimes been ingrained and intertwined in our very being, who we think we are. But it's about separating from that and realizing that we are more than our beliefs. We are more than our thoughts. And so it's about breaking that down. And so one of the ways is through gnosis. Let's see, I haven't memorized them. I didn't expect to talk about this, and I haven't dived too deep into them, but um, it's basically recognizing that we are all one, right? Recognizing the unity consciousness, recognize that everything is the all that is, right? Recognizing the illusory nature of this reality and not letting it freak you the fuck out, right? Which it's a slow process because you have to rewire that to really get yourself to a place where you're like, yeah, I guess this could be all just a big simulation or whatever, right? Like, and not let that completely rock your world. I also question if that's what part of what am I trying to say? Part of not ascension, the big revealing of aliens is what I'm getting at. What's the word? Apocalypse or whatever. But um, like surprise, the big reveal, aliens are here. I've been thinking a lot about aliens and interdimensional beings or whatever, and perhaps there's beings that have been here on this planet for far longer than we've been here. Potentially, there's multiple beings that live here, or beings that are under the earth, the middle of the earth or whatever. Nothing's off the table yet. Anything I'm like seems semi plausible like that I've looked into, and I'm like, well, nothing would surprise me at this point. But all of it is sort of a moot point when I put it into the framework of everything just being a simulation, right? Like, yes, maybe there's Anunnaki that created us. Maybe, ancient aliens built the pyramids. Yeah, maybe. But also, what if it's all just a part of the simulation, right? What if the concept of God is just a part of the simulation? right? I had to ask myself that, and it's still a big question mark. But these are the things that I'm working through and questioning, because at the end of the day, nobody knows, right? I despise it when people speak from a position of like, this is how it is. They've astral traveled and this is what's on Mars. Okay, maybe. I understand you believe what you think you saw, but maybe I'll take it into consideration, but don't talk to me like it's a fact. I have to see it for myself. And so all of these things, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything, of course. These are just simply my beliefs, and I enjoy talking about the possibilities, the what ifs, right? So when I talk about these things, or even like reincarnation, what if that is just the nature of this matrix? What if that's not the nature of true real reality? What if reincarnation is only in this realm that we're currently in, right? These sorts of things. I also question, once we advance to the higher levels, depending on which philosophy you're listening to, there's 12 levels and realms to this earth plane, or 12 or infinite or whatever. The Norse tales talked about the tree of life and all this stuff. So I do believe there's multiple realms to this place. Some are more heavenly, some are darker and have more shadow and darkness to them, right? And I think that our spirit moves through all of them, not necessarily in sequential order, because I think that time is an illusion again, but I think that we're perhaps experiencing that all simultaneously at this current moment. Um, and so I wonder if all of those different layers are all just a part of this quote unquote earth realm. So whether you're an angel, a divine being, or a human, or a demonic being, I wonder if we're all part of the same different levels of the same big world, right? And then, or dimension. And then outside of this dimension is, infinite dimensions that are similar but not, right? Well, that's a whole nother episode. But um, I think that when I start thinking about what is the point of all of this, if it's all not real, what do I do with that information? I choose to view it as an experience. I choose to view it as a simulation to practice, not to take things so seriously, not to get so wrapped up in things of the earth, right? Whether that's taxes or uh, gas prices increasing or the news or whatever Biden is doing or Trump is doing or just all of the things. It's for me about practicing what I think Jesus spoke about, which is being in the world but not of the world, right? Not letting those things get to me anymore in a way that they used to drag me down or to trap me in these mind traps. We get into these mind traps, which I talked about in a previous episode, where we believe these stories in our heads and we repeat them enough times and then we start to believe them, and then when we believe them, then it becomes a part of who we are, and then we start to hang around other people who believe that, and it just reinforces it, and it just becomes a whole thing. It's not a good or a bad thing, it's a thing. And I chose to unravel myself from such things because that's what the ancient knowledge suggested that I do in order to reach nirvana, in order to get off this crazy ride, right? So I choose not to view it as a prison or entrapment, because that then implicates somebody doing something bad to me. That then I start dwelling in victimhood, like these evil beings are trapping us and we need to fight them and escape, and there's a holy battle and a cosmic war happening. These are all very human ideas. I believe that the all that is divine beings of love and peace, joy and contentment, are not concerned with fighting demons in a holy war in the 12th dimension. I just don't believe it. Maybe the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, they all had gods that behaved like humans. These very powerful beings that came from the heavens, oftentimes in their stories, or rose from the oceans. They often had these powers beyond belief. That's why they called them gods or divine beings. But I find it interesting that these quote unquote divine beings were real petty. They had real hot heads, right? Real tempers, these gods. Real big egos, these gods, right? Worship me, bow down to me. How dare you disrespect me? I'm going to smite you, right? A lot of murder. Gods, a lot of gods really into murder. And also growing crops, but also murder. A lot of retribution from these gods. And so those don't sound like divine beings to me. They sound like something else. Are they actually real beings, interdimensional beings, perhaps from this plane or another similar plane where they're also trying to shed their ego as well? Maybe. Do we view them as gods because they're millions of years ahead of us evolutionarily, and they're doing things we can't comprehend with their biology or technology? Yes, probably, very likely. But I don't think that's God. That's a powerful being that might have some anger issues, and may or may not be blue. No disrespect to, to any of the divine beings listening now. Love you, but I should tread lightly, right? But that's okay. I believe that this is just a training ground, and I've gotten myself into a frame of mind of just trying to relax into it, right? Of trusting this divine process that I often, almost always, don't understand fully, right? This process of faith and trust, that the divine is leading me somewhere where I need to be, right? That Matt Omega is not going to fuck me over, right? He hasn't yet. I seriously doubt, because would I do that to myself? Would I do that to my own children, or the child version of Matt Owens? No, of course not. I would treat him kindly and lovingly, and guide him and lead him, and not judge him for when he stumbles or doesn't understand or has to learn that lesson again, right? We're so hard on ourselves. I suppose I'll speak for myself. I was very hard on myself for my entire life. And the last few years, I've really learned to change that behavior. And I really learned to love myself in such a new and beautiful way, right? But I had to do that by going within and learning to forgive myself. By learning to forgive myself, I then learned to unlock forgiveness of others, right? Which couldn't be unlocked until I forgave myself. Untangling all of those years of guilt, of doing things wrong, not being good enough, regrets, right? My new frame of mind, now that I've shed all of those beliefs, shed all of that guilt over time, didn't happen overnight. I had to slowly learn to love those things, the knot slowly becoming untangled over time as I loosen these things to free myself. It's like Houdini freeing himself from a bunch of knots or from the handcuffs, right? I'm freeing myself. And I'm talking about this to let you know that you can free yourself as well. I talk about this so that I can share my notes. Like, hey, this is what's really worked for me. And you can copy my notes or improvise or do your own thing or let it inspire you to head down a similar path. But I feel like now I'm just trying to become the best version of myself that I can, learn to let go, learn to ease into the cosmic river, right? Let it take me where it needs to, not to get my feathers too ruffled, right? And to learn to smile and laugh as much as I can, right? Often as I'm wiping away tears, huddled into a corner, that's fine. I'll take what I can get, I guess. That's all I got. End transmission.